But the longer turnaround times can absolutely crush your results if you send the wrong kinds of cards. And so strategy is no longer optional, strategy is required. Whenever grading gets more expensive or the turnaround times get longer, there's usually an uproar. Some people panic, everyone's mad, some people threaten to quit. But as a card investor and as someone who has graded thousands of cards, the question I always ask is, okay, I can't change this, so what do I do about this? And I can tell you there are three things that become more important than ever when prices rise or when turnarounds get longer. And in this video, I'm going to break down all three so you can continue to grade cards for profit. Now, the cool part is these three things will almost always improve your grading results because they're just core parts of a sound grading strategy, but they're more important than ever anytime grading gets slower or more expensive. Now, before we dive in, as a card grader, I have to just start by addressing the obvious. This is frustrating, right? Like PSA absolutely deserves criticism here. They've consistently been surprised by demand for their own product, and as a business, you just can't let that happen. So if you're frustrated, I get it. I am too, but it is what it is, and unless you're going to stop grading cards, this is just the situation we're in. So complaining about it doesn't really help us. The way I think about this is I'm here to make money as a sports card investor. So when things change, the question becomes, how does this actually change my approach? So there are three things to combat the long turnarounds, and I want to talk through each of these. So the first one, when the numbers make sense, consider faster turnaround times. Now the gap between bulk turnarounds and the faster turnaround times continues to widen every single time they make one of these adjustments. And so the thing to keep in mind is that the faster turnarounds mean that we get to lock in our profits faster, we get to unlock our money faster. We can't get to the next card or the next submission if our money is tied up in cards sitting at PSA forever. And it also de-risks our grading orders because there's less uncertainty in the market when we look over a 1 to 2 month stretch compared to a 7 to 8 month stretch. Things change, the market shifts, players get hurt, players show us they're better or worse than we expected. And we don't want a situation where we catch the bad side of that and we have cards sitting at PSA just losing value while they're on the clock. So the faster turnaround times help us ensure that we're getting our cards back in a very similar market to when we sent them. Now, super important note here, not every card deserves to be sent at the express turnaround level. So we've got to be really selective here about which cards we're going to spend extra money to get back in a faster turnaround. Now, the logical follow-up question to this is, how do we actually decide? Now, I like to use math and data whenever possible. And so I created what I call the 2x rule. And this is a rule that helps me make sure that I'm sending cards that actually have some meaningful upside when I send them off for grading. So the 2x rule is that I want to target cards where a PSA 10 is worth at least 2x the raw price plus the grading fee, so double the total cost. And this applies in the same way even at the faster turnaround time. So you just insert the higher grading fee into the equation and see if it still works. Now what this does is it ensures that there's enough margin to actually grade that card. So if you plug in the numbers and it meets the 2x rule's criteria, then great, that's probably a legit candidate for a faster turnaround. Now my confidence in a card's condition is always the tiebreaker because I don't want to pay more money for the faster turnaround just to get a 9 and either break even or lose money after the fees. And so I have to be more confident in the condition if I'm going to pay for the higher grading fees. And I really only want to send cards where I'm super confident in the condition and I feel have a very strong chance at a PSA 10. Okay, the second one is consistency with grading submissions. So if you send one grading order and then you wait the 7-month turnaround before you make your next move, guys, you're just never going to get this off the ground or build any momentum. The goal with grading is to build a rolling pipeline so you can keep things moving and start to generate cash flow. So I like to submit at least one grading order per month. And that way on the other side of the long turnaround, once the orders start coming back, we start getting an order back every month if we're sending an order every month. And this is what creates that regular cash flow. And this also means that the long turnaround times have less impact on our actual business. So this is one of the reasons why I've always talked about consistency with grading, but you just don't win from making a submission and stopping. You've got to continue to build momentum with consistent submissions over time. All right, the third thing, and this is the most important one by far, but it's to target higher upside cards for grading. So with a long turnaround, it basically doesn't make sense to send cards unless you're going to make a bunch of money when you finally get them back. Like who wants to wait 8 months to make $12 of net profit on a card? Cool, right? No, that sucks. Like, don't waste your time on that. And once again, when your money is tied up longer, the bad grades are going to hurt more, and the market also has more time to shift. So a play that looks good today could be completely different when you get your grades and your cards come back. So long turnarounds will amplify mistakes in your card selection. Now here's what to do instead. So target cards where you win big on the PSA 10s. So for example, if we've got two cards that are $50 raw and you throw in an extra $25 for the grading fee, let's assume we're using that bulk turnaround level. The first card sells for $125 as a PSA 10. That's not awful, right? I mean, that could make you a little bit of money. But the other card sells for $300 as a PSA 10. That's outstanding. Each 10 is a 4x. And here's the thing, you're spending the same amount of money, you're spending the same grading fee, you're waiting the same amount of time, it takes the same amount of time to find those cards, but one of them just makes you significantly more money. So you tell me, which of those two cards would you prefer to have in your order? Targeting higher upside cards is one of the biggest unlocks in the entire card market. It's just math. You're going to go so much faster. Okay, now the logical follow-up question here is, how do we actually find high upside cards? So I'm going to show you two different ways to do this. The first way, I built a tool called Coin that does this automatically so you can see a ranked list of higher upside grading opportunities based on the latest market data. It's going to pull all those data points into the same table and make this easy for you so you can do 5 hours of research in 5 seconds. Now, I built Coin to solve this very specific exact problem, but it is a paid tool, so if that's not for you, I'm actually going to walk you through another way you can do this using different sites completely for free. Now, I'll warn you, it takes a little more work, but it can be done. So we're going to go into gemrate.com here, and what I'm doing here is I'm looking for cards that have strong gem rates. The gem rate is kind of like a card success rate with grading, so it's the number of PSA 10s divided by the total number of that card graded. So if you send 10 cards and 7 of them come back a PSA 10, your gem rate is 7 divided by 10 or 70%. Pretty straightforward, right? But the gem rate serves as a nice leading indicator of which cards are grading well so far. It's not a perfect metric, but it at least gives us some directional help for where to look. So I'm going to look for Shohei Ohtani cards. The reason why I like Ohtani is because he's a veteran, proven name, superstar. He's the type of guy that's so established that even if he goes through a slump, his card values likely aren't going to fall off very much, if at all. So I'm actually going to filter by year to intentionally get away from the last year or so of products. And the reason why I do this is because I want cards that have stabilized a bit. I don't want to have the new product hype influencing the values. And let's say I don't want all these Topps Now cards, so let's filter with Bowman, and we'll pick a Bowman. How about this Bowman's Best Refractor? Looks like a 67% gem rate, so really strong gem rate. And so once you've identified a card like this, the next step is just to check the value and make sure that there's actually a decent premium available for a PSA 10. I'm going to use Card Ladder here, but Market Movers is another great tool. You can also use 130point.com if you want a free version of this, but just go to your favorite comp tool. And all we're doing here is just looking up raw prices on this card. So I'm seeing examples anywhere from, say, $15. Well, here's one for that went for $5. There's some $40 copies. So I'm probably in the $20 to $30 range if I'm looking at a clean, halfway centered copy of this card. Now remember, this is just the price of the raw card, and we're still going to have a $25 to $33 grading fee plus a little bit of shipping, certainly more if we go into one of the even higher grading turnaround times. But let's just say for this one, we're going to pay the top end of market. We're going to pay $30 raw, and we'll pay $35 total for the grading fee plus a little bit of shipping. So all in, we're into one of these for $65, including the grading fees. So based on the 2x rule, if our cost is $65, I want to get at least double that for a PSA 10. So I'm looking for a PSA 10 value on this card to be at least $130, ideally even more, just to build an additional buffer. Okay, so from here, we're going to kick it back to our comp tool, and we're looking for what have PSA 10 copies sold for, and we see $250 for what looks like a little bit of a high side outlier, $144, $144, $143, $152, $170, $141, $139. So this pretty clearly does pass the 2x rule, and so that's what gives me confidence that that's a card that I can target for grading. So now that I've shown you how to find them, going back to the why behind this, the reason I like cards like this is there's $80 of profit margin available on a $65 purchase. That's pretty solid, especially if we're waiting that long turnaround time. Again, we want to make sure it's worth our time to actually wait that long. The other thing that these higher upside cards will do for us is it'll help us build in some buffer. So if Shohei's market does for some reason fall off in the next handful of months, cool, we've still got some buffer. Maybe that card drops all the way to $100. guess what? We're still making some money on that thing. It's not as nice as making $80 or more per card, but it's still going to leave us with plenty of margin to make a net profit. When we target cards with little to no upside, there's just no wiggle room. Like, we have to get such a high gem rate for that submission to be profitable. These higher upside cards let us be objectively worse as graders, right? Like, we can get a worse, lower gem rate and still end up making just as much or more money compared to a submission where you send low upside cards. And this is where a little bit of math can be really powerful, especially over the long haul if you're looking at doing this at any kind of scale. And so grading isn't going anywhere, guys. It's more popular than ever. The good news is that PSA 10 values are also higher than ever. The demand for cards is off the charts right now, and that's pretty cool because it creates this unique opportunity where if you're willing to put in the work and you select the right types of cards to send out for grading, you can capture some of that profit for yourself. But the longer turnaround times can absolutely crush your results if you send the wrong kinds of cards. And so strategy is no longer optional. Strategy is required to do this successfully. So the 3 strategic adjustments here. Number 1, when the numbers make sense, consider those faster turnaround times so you can get your cards back and get on to the next one. Number 2, submit consistently, because that consistency is going to offset these long turnaround times once you start getting your orders coming back. And number 3, my personal favorite, the most important one, target higher upside cards. It's just math. You're going to go way faster. Guys, at the end of the day, the longer turnaround times don't mean grading stops working. It just means that the strategy matters more than ever before. If you like this type of card strategy talk, I post videos like this all the time, so don't forget to subscribe. But otherwise, we'll see you on the next video.